In my previous life, my husband faked his death to trick me into drinking poison to die for love. I was sent to the ICU but couldn't be saved, while he just had his stomach pumped and was full of life again. At the funeral, he wept bitterly before my grave. "Wife, why won't you let me go with you? Why did you replace my medicine with cough syrup?" Everyone comforted him, praising him as a rare good man in this world. Yet the very next day, he was entwined in passionate lovemaking with his mistress on the same bed we had shared for 3 years. My husband whispered tenderly, "Darling, that woman is dead, and we can finally be together openly. The fortune she left behind is enough for us to enjoy for a lifetime." When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day my husband tricked me into drinking poison. "Wife, I've tried my best. I can't stay with you any longer, but I'm so unwilling. I can't bear to leave you. Seeing you in such pain every day truly breaks my heart. I know you can't bear to part with me either." My husband grabbed my hand and kissed the back of it tenderly. "Darling, come with me. Let's continue being husband and wife on the road to the underworld, all right?" His familiar gentle words struck like a sudden alarm bell, instantly snapping me out of my dazed state. I clenched my lower lip tightly, scanning my surroundings. On the nightstand, 2 glasses of dark red liquid stung my eyes painfully. I took 2 deep breaths. Only then did I have no choice but to accept the absurd reality that I had actually been reborn. In my previous life, my husband was diagnosed with mid to late stage liver cancer, and the prognosis was extremely grim. Upon learning of my husband's illness, I cried my heart out, my spirit tormented, and I fell into severe depression, under the dual blows of PUA and depression before my husband's passing. In a daze, I picked up the poison before me and drank it all in one gulp. I wished to follow my husband, Jet Jiang, to the underworld, but then the poison took effect, and I was in unbearable agony. Yet he shed his feeble, sickly pretense, pouring himself a glass of red wine to celebrate, mocking me heartlessly for being as foolish as a pig. 6 months had passed, and I hadn't even noticed he was faking his illness. Wait until I'm foaming at the mouth, my pupils dilated. Only then does he theatrically call an ambulance for me. In the ICU, after enduring the torment of every possible resuscitation method, I still succumbed to death. Yet he merely had his stomach pumped and walked away unscathed. The day after my burial, he was passionately entangled with his lover on the very bed we had shared for 3 years. He whispered tenderly, "Darling, that woman Wu Yu is dead. We can finally be together openly. The fortune she left behind is enough for us to enjoy for a lifetime." The painful memories nearly drowned my reason. I dug my nails into my palms until they bled crimson, just to restrain the impulse to tear him limb from limb. I could only glare furiously at the emaciated Jet Jiang before me. Yet he kept staring straight at those 2 glasses of dark red liquid and continued, "My dear, do you still remember when we drank the ceremonial wine at our wedding? Drink it, and we can be husband and wife for eternity in the underworld, given a second chance at life." How could I let myself be fooled and deceived by you again? I swore silently to myself, "In my past life, you faked your death to trick me into dying for love. This lifetime, I'll make your fake death come true." Jet Jiang frowned slightly when he saw I wasn't responding. Putting on an act of infatuation and pity, he continued his emotional manipulation. "Darling, don't you want to share the same quilt in life and the same grave in death?" I was seething with hatred inside, wishing I could immediately pry open his mouth and pour the poison down his throat. Yet on the surface, I pretended to be in unbearable agony. Life is like a play. Who doesn't have some acting skills? I sat on the edge of the bed, suppressing my nausea as I clasped his hand in return. Of course I remember. Our wedding day was the happiest moment of my life. With that, I turned and picked up the poisoned wine that was originally meant for me. Handing it to him instead, in one smooth motion, I pushed his glass across to the opposite side. "Husband, whether you live or die, I will stay by your side, never leaving nor abandoning you." He glanced at the nightstand, a satisfied expression on his face. "Wife, you're so good to me. Even if I were to die right now, I'd be happy." I lay down beside him, picked up the wine glass, and clinked it with his, "Honey, cheers." "I'd be happy to die in your arms." Jet Jiang flashed a triumphant smile, swiftly raised his glass, and downed it in one gulp. Only after confirming he had swallowed the poison did I safely finish my cough syrup. The next second, Jet Jiang sensed something was wrong, because what he drank tasted bitter. He suddenly sat up, looking at me with murderous eyes. I clung tightly to his waist, refusing to let him go. Honey, where are you going? Jet Jiang strictly controlled his diet to feign illness. His already pale face completely lost all color, his eyes filled with terror, his voice trembled. It's too bitter. I want some water. I looked at him as if he were an idiot. Bitter, mine is sweet. Jet Jiang was on the verge of tears. To save himself, he had to admit that what we drank was different. He quickly corrected himself. I misspoke, it's too sweet. You know I don't like sweet things. I still held onto his waist, not letting him go. He was so anxious that tears welled up in his eyes, lifting the pillow to search for his phone, but he forgot. He had already drained his phone's battery and snapped the charging cable in half. Last night, in the dead of night, he insisted on cleaning the fish tank and accidentally dropped my phone into the water. We haven't had time to get it fixed yet. Looking back now, it was all to delay calling an ambulance when my poisoning symptoms flared up. I pressed against his back, comforting him. Honey, it must be because your body is weaker, reacting first and creating illusions. Just endure a little longer, and soon you won't feel the pain anymore. Hold me, my love, I'll be with you soon. Jet Jiang desperately tried to pry my hand away. His entire body was trembling as he turned to look at me, pleading, honey, quick, call an ambulance for me. I looked at him in confusion. Why, have you changed your mind and don't want to die anymore? But you have cancer, and you'll die sooner or later. To keep you company, I drank the poison too. Jet Jiang was at a loss for words, pushed me away abruptly, and rushed straight to the bathroom. Then, I heard him retching desperately. He stayed inside for a full 5 minutes, probably without throwing up. He cursed violently with a national expletive. He stumbled out, his face now flushed with color, and shook my shoulders like a madman. Call an ambulance for me. With that, he curled up on the ground in pain. Just as I managed with great effort to move Jet Jiang onto the bed, the doorbell rang. I curled my lips into a faint smile. Perfect timing. I didn't go straight to open the door. Instead, I quickly ran to the bathroom and lightly dabbed my lips with my rose-colored lipstick, creating the illusion of poisoning. I opened the door while clutching my chest with a pained expression. When my mother-in-law saw that it was me opening the door, she froze in shock. Only after clearly seeing my expression did she quietly let out a sigh of relief. In my past life, my mother-in-law had also come at this exact time, except back then, it was her son Jet Jiang who opened the door for her. She had come to bring us some local specialties from her hometown. I'll never be sure until the day I die whether her arrival was a coincidence, or if it was premeditated all along. All I remember is that Jet Jiang's last phone call this morning was to his mother. Jet Jiang timed his feigned illness perfectly. He started getting sick as soon as the weather turned cooler in August. During the treatment, he voluntarily shaved his head, he wore thick clothes and refused to let me touch his body. His reason was that he feared it would sadden me to see. He also forbade me from telling anyone about his illness, because he didn't want others to look at him with strange eyes. Before his death, he emotionally manipulated me into seeking death for him. After I die, they will say I took my own life because I couldn't bear the torment of depression. Jet Jiang cared for me deeply and wanted to die with me. I couldn't bear it, so I secretly replaced his poison with cough syrup. Everyone would praise him as a good man, while blaming me for being overly sensitive and not valuing life. Where's my precious son? Is he feeling better now? My mother-in-law bumped into my shoulder as she pushed through the door, looking utterly arrogant. I've been married to Jet Jiang for 3 years without having a child, and my mother-in-law holds a strong grudge against me for it. I pretended to cough twice and replied weakly, he's lying inside. Mom, you came just in time. Let me use your phone. Jet Jiang just said he's not feeling well and asked me to call an ambulance for him. My mother-in-law casually tossed a sack of local specialties on the floor and rushed to the bedroom to call for Jet Jiang. Jet Jiang turned his back to her without responding. When she walked out, she didn't show the slightest sign of panic. The mother-in-law gently closed the bedroom door and glanced at me. My son is sleeping soundly. Why call an ambulance? I deliberately clutched my stomach and tried to snatch her bag. Mom, I'm not feeling well either. Can I borrow your phone for a moment? My mother-in-law sidestepped and firmly pushed my hand away, her tone icy. Then you must be hungry. I brought Jet's favorite dried cured meat. Take a piece out and stew it for him at noon. Mom, I really don't feel well. My mother-in-law acted as if she didn't hear. Sitting on the sofa scrolling through short videos on her phone, her attitude made me suspect that she knew about Jet Jiang's fake death plan. At the time, I naively thought she had actually come to visit us. I clutched my stomach and ran to the bathroom, shouting as I went, "Mom, my stomach hurts, just help yourself to whatever you need." My mother-in-law watched me cheerfully, probably thinking I was about to suffer from poisoning. "Go ahead and laugh all you want, call an ambulance now, and your son can still be saved." Any later, and not even the greatest immortal could save him. Coming out of the bathroom, I returned to the bedroom. Looking closely, Jet Jiang's body was trembling slightly. In my previous life, I remained conscious even as I was carried into the emergency room. I could feel the pain in my body, hear people talking, but I couldn't move or speak. Leaning over the bedside, I wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and suddenly laughed. "My dear husband, I know you can hear me. You must be suffering now, right? I want to call an ambulance for you. But your mother won't allow it, and there's nothing I can do about her. I know you're faking your illness. And I know you're planning to fake your death to kill me, take all our wealth, and live happily ever after with your mother and your little lover. Unfortunately, I secretly switched your syrup, so your fake death is about to become real. You must be wondering how I know all this, but I have no intention of telling you. All you need to know is that what you're suffering now is your just retribution. Don't worry, I won't spare your mother or your lover either. This is what you all owe me." Jet Jiang let out a foul breath with great difficulty. Tears streamed down from the corners of his eyes. I considerately wiped them dry for him. "Don't worry, I won't let you die so easily. I'll call an ambulance right away." I suddenly let out a scream. My mother-in-law came running at the sound. "What's going on? Why all the shouting? Don't wake my son up." I pointed at Jet Jiang, my hand trembling uncontrollably. Mom, Jet Jiang, he's foaming at the mouth." Only then did the mother-in-law turn Jet Jiang over to carefully examine his face. By this time, Jet Jiang was already in shock, unable to speak, but his face showed extreme pain. The mother-in-law didn't appear nervous or panicked. Instead, she looked uncertainly at her son, then at me. She glanced at me, then back at her son, muttering to herself in doubt, "He's sleeping just fine like this." Even at this point, my mother-in-law still refuses to give up on their fake death plan. Oh, she's waiting for me to succumb to the poison. I was frantic with anxiety. "Mom, let's just send Jet Jiang to the hospital. Even if he's going to pass, at least let him suffer less." My mother-in-law shot me an annoyed glance and hesitantly pulled out her phone. "I'd better make a call and ask Dr. Lan first." Almost imperceptibly, a cold smile flickered across my face. Besides my mother-in-law and me, there's one other person who knows about Jet Jiang's illness. That would be his lover, the Dr. Lan mentioned by my mother-in-law, Myra Lan. I never expected that even my mother-in-law, who lives in the countryside year-round, would know about Myra Lan's existence. If you dare to play dirty, don't blame me for doing the same. I want them to watch Jet Jiang die with their own eyes, yet be utterly powerless to stop it. Myra Lan opened a psychotherapy clinic near my residential area. In less than 10 minutes, Myra Lan arrived wearing her work clothes, her barely noticeable pregnant belly showing. Jet Jiang always believed that the child she was carrying was her own, yet after 3 years of marriage, my belly showed no signs of life. This was the main reason Jet Jiang feigned illness to trick me into a suicide pact. She looked at me, her brow furrowed tightly, rushing into the bedroom with practiced haste yet flustered panic. The next second, she froze at the sight of Jet Jiang's dark purple complexion, one hand clutching her stomach, the other gripping the edge of the bed. She slowly slid down to sit before it. She shook Jet Jiang repeatedly, her eyes bloodshot. "How could this happen? How could this happen? Call an ambulance quickly. Jet Jiang, he's been poisoned." Watching Myra Lan frantically performing first aid on Jet Jiang, only then did the old woman panic. His mouth opened but no sound came out. He was completely stunned, the color draining from his face in an instant. I looked at them in confusion, but I drank it too. "Why am I fine?" My mother-in-law suddenly realized something and slapped me across the face. "You useless woman who can't lay an egg, you're going to be the death of my son," covering my face. I cried out in grievance. He was the one who wanted to take the medicine. "What's wrong with me wanting to accompany Jet Jiang? Why did you hit me?" The mother-in-law slapped her thigh and wailed loudly as she tried to grab Jet Jiang. "It's over, It's over, everything is ruined. I snatched the phone she had been clutching tightly and called an ambulance. But deep down, I knew it was already too late. Jet Jiang couldn't be saved. My son, you must not be in danger. The ambulance rushed Jet Jiang to the ICU for emergency treatment. Just like in my previous life, every possible life-saving measure and medical device was used, at that time. Though I was unconscious, I still retained a sliver of awareness, being turned over, pressed, intubated, stomach pumped, electrocuted. The feeling was worse than dying on the spot. The hospital was bustling with people now. The perfect opportunity to cut ties. I leaned weakly against the wall, my eyes fixed straight on the emergency room, sobbing uncontrollably. Husband, you must not die. You asked me to die with you, but why did you replace my poison with cough syrup? If I had known you would do this, I would never have agreed to die with you. Even if you're sick and don't have many days left, as long as you're alive for one more day, you're my spiritual pillar. If you leave like this, how am I supposed to live my days afterward? I cried my heart out, utterly heartbroken. In a hospital setting where life and death partings unfold at any moment, it's easiest for people to empathize. Among the onlookers, someone was secretly wiping away tears. I never thought there are still people willing to die for love these days. This girl must have loved her husband deeply. Whether her husband loved her as much is hard to say. Didn't you hear her say it was her husband who asked her to die with him? Exactly. Even someone terminally ill shouldn't be so heartless as to ask their wife to die with them. Didn't he switch the poison to syrup again? That shows he didn't truly want his wife to die. Maybe he had some difficulties. The onlookers cast sympathetic glances at me. Just then, the doctor came out of the emergency room. My mother-in-law and Myra Lan immediately went up to him, pushing me, the legitimate wife, aside. Myra Lan was so nervous she was pinching her fingers. Doctor, my friend was saved, right? Doctor, is my son okay? Can I go in and see him? The doctor glanced at them, shaking his head helplessly with a sigh. We've delayed too long. We did our best. Please accept our condolences. It felt like a bolt of lightning had struck them out of the blue. Myra Lan's tense shoulders instantly slumped. The body swayed uncontrollably, barely managing to steady itself against the wall. The mother-in-law broke down. Her deeply wrinkled face was etched with disbelief. She desperately clutched the doctor's arm, her voice trembling. It's impossible. How could my son die? You bunch of quacks. You killed my son. Give me back my son. The doctor was quite helpless in the face of the old woman's unreasonable behavior, but considering her grief over losing her child, I still patiently explained. Mom, I shouted loudly, once again drawing the attention of everyone passing by. If you hadn't stopped me from calling an ambulance, how could my husband have been beyond saving? You killed Jet Jiang. You killed your own son. Tears streamed down the old woman's face as she turned her head inch by inch, no longer wanting to pretend. She suddenly rushed over and slapped me hard across the face. You're talking nonsense. My son didn't have to die. It was you who forced my son to drink the poison. You're the one truly responsible for his death. Give me back my son's life. My mother-in-law suddenly turned the tables, shifting all the blame onto me. But I won't let her wicked scheme succeed this time. I covered my face and retorted. I didn't. I love Jet Jiang. Why would I force him to take poison? He had liver cancer. You were afraid he'd be a burden to you, so you wanted him dead. You vicious woman. Not only did you fail to bear a single child for our Jiang family, but you also poisoned my son. Today, I'll beat you to death to avenge him. I heaved a deep sigh of relief. This foolish old woman's self-destruction undoubtedly helped clear my suspicions once again. However, more and more onlookers were left bewildered. No way, this twist is just too shocking. That's straight-up murder. I actually felt sorry for that girl earlier. Even the most filial child grows weary by a long sickbed. Taking care of a patient is truly exhausting. I know from experience. But poisoning someone, that's going too far. It's hard to judge. Human hearts are unfathomable. I really can't tell who's telling the truth and who's lying among them. Before I could even open my mouth to question them, the doctor froze first, frowning seriously. Are you mistaken? The deceased didn't have liver cancer. Apart from organ failure caused by poisoning, all bodily functions were perfectly healthy. I clung to the doctor, refusing to let go. What? My husband doesn't have liver cancer, but he's been sick for half a year, receiving chemotherapy at the hospital every month. Look, here's his diagnosis report. I took out the diagnosis report from my bag, the one that showed Jet Jiang had been diagnosed with liver cancer. The doctor took just one glance, and his expression changed instantly. Nonsense. This piece of paper doesn't even have the hospital's official seal. What kind of medical report is this supposed to be? I was utterly stunned. Mom, did you actually know about Jet Jiang faking his illness? Why did he pretend to be sick and trick me into dying together? This morning, I saw his cup of medicine was too full. My heart ached for all the suffering he endured over the past 6 months, so I insisted on taking his cup instead. If we hadn't switched, wouldn't I be the one dead now? The mother-in-law, lost in grief, turned a deaf ear and sat on the ground in a daze, murmuring to herself, "That's not how it was. Jet told me not to interfere no matter what happens. He has his own plans." I thought he was just pretending. The situation took another unexpected turn. The onlookers were completely shocked. Is there anyone who can make sense of this ridiculous plot? Her husband wasn't sick, yet he was poisoned. Someone must have poisoned him. We can't just take her word for it. But have you considered, if her husband was perfectly fine, why would he pretend to be sick, and with incurable liver cancer, no less? How would he end the act without dying? Is it possible that her husband had some ulterior motive and wanted to fake his own death? The mother-in-law and Myralan could no longer keep it hidden, suppressing their grief as they dispersed the crowd. At that moment, Jet Jiang's body was also wheeled out. The mother-in-law held Jet Jiang, weeping uncontrollably with a heart-wrenching sorrow. I looked at the stiff body beneath the white sheet and finally let out a deep sigh of relief. As if the suffering endured in the previous life because of him had suddenly lessened. Seeing her in such agony, the onlookers dispersed, no longer gathering around. My mother-in-law ordered me to leave, forbidding me from accompanying them to the crematorium, though I couldn't be bothered to collect the remains of this scumbag either. But thinking about what might happen later, I won't be completely at ease until I see him burned to ashes. Stubbornly, I followed them onto the hearse bound for the crematorium. Only after seeing Jet Jiang being pushed into the incinerator did I leave quietly, finally at peace. When I got home, I first packed up all of Jet Jiang's belongings and threw them into the trash bin downstairs. Then, I transferred all the money from our joint account to my parents under the guise of alimony. Jet Jiang refused to divorce me and instead chose to fake his death to trick me into committing suicide with him. Attempting to kill me, isn't it just because he wanted to monopolize all my assets? Since his being unkind, don't blame me for being unjust. I run a beauty salon with an annual net income of several million. During the 6 months Jet Jiang was ill, he took at least 200,000 from me every month for treatment expenses. Whenever there was a folk remedy or special medicine he wanted to try, I gave him hundreds of thousands or even millions without hesitation. But he never let me accompany him to medical appointments, afraid I might hear bad news and become too heartbroken. Since he wasn't sick, the money must have been transferred by him. Ever since he fell ill, I was once in low spirits, and the thought of a future without him made me burst into tears uncontrollably. I loved him so much that I was willing to give up my right to be a mother for him. He never knew that my 3 years of infertility were not due to me, but because he had oligospermia. For his sake, I hid the real reason. I just used fate hasn't arrived yet to comfort him. In just 2 months, I had tormented myself into depression. I no longer had the heart to run the beauty salon, and for 6 months, it was basically losing money every month. I never expected that the person I loved so deeply would betray me, fool around with another woman, and even have a child with her. After Jet Jiang's death, I knew my mother-in-law and Myralan would never let it go. I asked a friend to introduce me to a particularly skilled lawyer for the lawsuit, strive to ensure that my mother-in-law and Myralan can't gain any advantage from me. The 3 million Jet Jiang swindled from me must be recovered. Everything is ready except for the east wind. Now it's my turn to pour myself a glass of red wine to celebrate. My gaze wandered as I scanned the surroundings. Jet Jiang, oh Jet Jiang, do you also feel the same unwillingness as I do? With your soul returning in resentment, success was within reach, yet you stumbled at the last moment. Do you hate me to the core now? Ha ha ha, why am I so delighted? That night, whether it was the alcohol or finally letting go of my burdens, I didn't take my antidepressants and still had a peaceful sleep. On the 3rd day, the mother-in-law returned holding Jet Jiang's ashes. After just 2 days apart, she seemed to have aged a decade. her expression utterly desolate. Her half-grey hair had turned completely white. Behind her followed a visibly haggard Myra Lan. The two supported each other, with heavy dark circles under their eyes, likely from not getting proper rest these past few days. Myra Lan deliberately wore a fitted knit dress today, even wrapped in a coat. Her small baby bump was distinctly visible. I was slightly taken aback, surprised that my mother-in-law didn't lash out at me upon seeing me again, as soon as they entered, within less than 2 minutes. 2 police officers also arrived at the door. So that's how it is. Who called the police? My mother-in-law, holding the urn, her eyes red, glared at me as if she wanted to devour me. Officers, you must stand up for me. This wicked woman poisoned my son with toxic drugs, causing him to die in agony. Hurry up and arrest her. Poison her too. Use the most lethal poison. The police officer's face turned as dark as coal. I mourned silently for a second over my mother-in-law's ignorance. Officers, please don't take it to heart. My husband just died, and my mother-in-law can't handle the shock. She's talking nonsense. My husband was indeed poisoned, but he poisoned himself. It has nothing to do with me. My mother-in-law gritted her teeth and tried to hit me again. Bullshit. If you keep slandering my son, I'll tear your mouth apart. Why would my son poison himself when he had a perfectly good life? I explained earnestly and patiently. Officer, my husband didn't intend to poison himself. He meant to poison me. By sheer coincidence, I ended up drinking his medicine, which is how I narrowly escaped death. Moreover, he feigned illness to deceive me for 6 months. After calculating, I found that just in these 6 months, he took nearly 3 million yuan from me for supposed medical treatments. Here are the fake medical reports he gave me, and these are the transfer records I've compiled. Officer, you must help me investigate where all this money has gone. When I said the last sentence, I kept staring at my mother-in-law and Myra Lan's faces. Myra Lan's expression flickered with panic for a moment before quickly returning to normal. She just pressed her lips tightly together, saying nothing. My mother-in-law was in tears, and compared to the day before yesterday in the hospital, she had come up with a new excuse this time. My son just got tired of you, a hen that can't lay eggs, and wanted to leave you, but you refused to divorce and wouldn't give him his share of the money. So he pretended to be sick. After you found out, you heartlessly poisoned my son to death and even slandered him, saying he wanted to harm you. How could you be so cruel? My son was blind to have married a venomous woman like you. Mother-in-law gave Myra Lan a meaningful glance. She finally couldn't hold back and spoke. Officer, Jet Jiang is my patient. He often comes to my studio for psychological counseling. He repeatedly mentioned to me that his marriage was falling apart and he wanted a divorce. But his wife was too domineering, threatening that if he divorced her, she would kill him. I knew they wouldn't let me off easily, but I never expected them to join forces to fabricate evidence and frame me. I pinched my palm to squeeze out 2 tears. Officer, I know you need solid evidence to build a case. I can't prove that my husband faked his illness and death to trick me into committing suicide and trying to kill me, but they also have no evidence to prove that I poisoned Jet Jiang. So if we can just prove that the bottle of poison was bought by my husband, does that mean I can be cleared of suspicion? The police officer nodded, saying that as long as it could be proven that the poison was purchased and successfully received by Jet Jiang, my innocence could be established. The problem is, Jet Jiang's phone is missing. I searched every corner of the house but still couldn't find Jet Jiang's phone. Yet, my proposal severely intimidated the person who hid the phone. The police officer said that if this case wasn't Jet Jiang's suicide by poisoning, it would involve criminal facts, and we would need to go to the police station to give statements. They thought that by privately colluding to fabricate testimony and calling the police, they could convict me. Little did they expect to end up lifting a stone only to drop it on their own feet. Now that they admit Jet Jiang committed suicide by poisoning, their earlier actions constitute the crime of slander against me. If he doesn't admit it, when Jet Jiang's phone is eventually found, it will reveal that he indeed privately purchased and used the poison. Combined with his prior act of feigning illness to swindle money, there's suspicion that he intended to harm me. Both of their faces turned pale. Even if they hid Jet Jiang's phone, the police could still trace some of his purchase records. Grandma didn't know the power of modern forensic techniques. But Myra Lan couldn't possibly be unaware. Grandma was about to say something when Myra Lan suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her back. Grandma stumbled backward, nearly dropping the urn in her hands. Myra Lan quickly caught Grandma and said anxiously, "Auntie has a heart condition and hasn't rested properly these past few days while handling Jet Jiang's funeral arrangements. She probably had an attack." Her mother-in-law caught her meaningful glance and suddenly rolled her eyes back, about to faint. My heart hurts. Medicine. The medicine is in my bag." Myra Lan quickly took out a fast-acting heart relief pill from the bag and fed it to her. 2 police officers helped her lie down on the sofa. They called me aside to ask a few questions privately. By the time I returned, my mother-in-law had calmed down. She also changed her statement to the police officers. The mother-in-law nearly gritted her teeth as she apologized to the police. "I'm an old woman, getting senile with age. And my memory isn't what it used to be. Maybe my Jet really did take his own life, and it has nothing to do with my daughter-in-law. I couldn't accept my son's death at first. So I took my anger out on my daughter-in-law. I apologized to her, daughter-in-law, for Jet's sake, who just passed away. Please forgive me, won't you?" They ultimately didn't dare to confront the truth head-on and chose the path of reconciliation that might cost them the least. Making her admit that her son died by suicide must have felt like her heart was bleeding. If I had been reborn just a little earlier, I could have thrown the evidence of her son harming me right in their faces by now. At this point, all we can do is take it one step at a time. I'd like to see what tricks they still have up their sleeves. To my surprise, the next second, Myra Lan walked over, puffing out her big belly. With tears in her eyes, she called out to me in infinite sorrow, "Sister Yaya." I got goosebumps all over and instinctively stepped back to keep a safe distance from her. "Sister Yaya, since things have come to this, I can no longer keep hiding the truth. I'm not just Brother Jiang's therapist, but also his, the one he loves." I deliberately covered my mouth with a hurt expression. "What? Jet Jiang actually kept a mistress behind my back?" Myra Lan's face instantly flushed red with embarrassment and anger as she bit her lower lip. "I know you've always deeply loved Brother Jiang, so you should be aware that his greatest wish in life was to have a child of his own. The child I'm carrying is Brother Jiang's only bloodline. Please don't blame Brother Jiang. He kept it from you because he was afraid of hurting you." I sneered coldly, afraid I'd be heartbroken. "So you faked your death to trick me into dying for love? Do you even believe that when you say it out loud?" Myra Lan glanced awkwardly at the 2 police officers beside her and continued, "Sister Yaya, please don't joke like this anymore. A day as husband and wife brings 100 days of kindness. Brother Jiang is no longer with us, Sister Yaya. Both Auntie and I hope you can accept this child and let them inherit the legacy they rightfully deserve." The fox's tail is finally showing. Mother-in-law also sat up, swallowing all her anger just to secure the inheritance. "Yaya, the child in Myra's belly is the only remaining seedling of our Jiang family. Considering all these years of marital affection with Jet, just acknowledge this child." I thought for a moment and softened my stance, sighing with emotion. If this child really is Jet Jiang's, of course I wouldn't have anything to say. Mother-in-law and Myra Lan exchanged a glance, secretly relieved, and smiled obsequiously at me. But I furrowed my brows and pursed my lips. "Jet Jiang is dead. How can you prove the child in your belly is his? Everything requires evidence. Without legal proof, I won't acknowledge it." Myra Lan gritted her teeth, and the mother-in-law nearly fainted from anger again. Myra Lan wiped her tears in grievance. "In my whole life, I've only had Brother Jiang as my man. If it's not his child, whose could it be? How would I know? You're so empathetic, and you've seen so many male patients. Now, the only thing that can prove its relationship with Jet Jiang is probably a paternity test." The mother-in-law slapped the sofa violently, unable to control her rising voice. "Jet has already turned to ashes. Where do you expect us to get a paternity test for you?" I smiled faintly, unfazed. "Then there's nothing to be done. Who told you to cremate Jet Jiang without thinking it through clearly? Jet Jiang just died, and you immediately bring a strange pregnant woman to claim the inheritance. I strongly suspect you're after my assets. If I easily agree today to divide the inheritance for the child of your mistress, will you bring your 4th and 5th women tomorrow to grab more money?" My mother-in-law jumped up in fury, her face twisted with rage as she glared at me. "Nonsense. If I say it's him then it's him. I only recognize this grandson of mine. Jet told me before he died, the child in Myra's belly is his own flesh and blood. What's the big deal about a paternity test? I'll take it with him. the police officer on the side reminded, only by presenting the specimen of the person whose relationship is to be identified can the appraisal results have legal significance. The mother-in-law couldn't hold back anymore, panting with anger. I asked you here to uphold justice for us, not to help her deal with me. I was practically laughing in frustration. Does she think the police station is her family's property? In the end, the mother-in-law had no choice but to claim her rightful share of the inheritance first. As soon as they entered, I sent a message to my highly paid, specially hired lawyer. By the time the scuffle was over, she had already appeared at my doorstep. Based on the property information I provided her, a property division agreement has already been drafted. The house and car are my premarital assets and have absolutely nothing to do with Jet Jiang. After marriage, he asked me to add his name to the property deed, which I happily agreed to. However, at my parents' insistence, we signed an additional agreement. If Jet Jiang causes the breakdown of the marital relationship due to personal reasons, he will not be entitled to ownership of the property. Now, I truly admire my parents' foresight. There is not a single penny left in Jet Jiang's account. A week ago, he withdrew cash multiple times, but the final use of the money remains unknown. He only gives his mother-in-law some money during holidays and festivals, so that money was most likely given to Myra Lan. When my mother-in-law heard that there were only $38.20 left in my account, she completely lost it. Impossible. How much does your beauty salon make each month? Do you think I don't know? You're hiding assets and mistreating the elderly. I'll sue you. I made a go-ahead gesture. Feel free to sue. It's just this $19.10. Take it or leave it. Over the years, Jet Jiang has taken quite a bit of money from me to give to you. You should know when enough is enough. Think about all the things you've done to me. How dare you try to bargain with me? The mother-in-law was so angry she was panting heavily. I grinned widely and transferred 19 yuan and 10 cents to her. After the police left, my mother-in-law and Myra Lan stubbornly refused to leave my house. To spite me, they even placed the urn on the altar in my living room where I worship the god of wealth. They declared they would hold Jet Jiang's 7th-day memorial ceremony in my home, claiming it was the only way for him to rest in peace. She even demands I give my mother-in-law 20,000 in alimony every month. If I don't pay, she'll just stay in my house forever. I've already died once. What do I care about her demons and monsters? I grabbed the urn and rushed to the bathroom. Dare to block my path to wealth. Today you'll become scrap material in the septic tank. Terrified, my mother-in-law quickly snatched it away, never daring to place the urn where I could see it again. Later, Myra Lan left, but my mother-in-law stubbornly held her ground in my home. After the security guard drove her out, she crouched at my doorstep clutching the urn. She's been running around the neighborhood like a madwoman, telling everyone I poisoned her son and refusing to share the inheritance with her, because I neglected to properly manage the beauty salon for over half a year. Many clients left, and I nearly went bankrupt. These days, I've been staying at the shop, planning marketing campaigns to win back old customers. As a result, I've overlooked driving my mother-in-law away. The mother-in-law is domineering but not very bright. She has been waging a prolonged guerrilla war against me, slandering me everywhere. Undoubtedly with Myra Lan pulling the strings behind the scenes. In just a few short days, I became the infamous, ruthless, and cunning villain in everyone's eyes. Everyone who sees me avoids me as if I were a heinous criminal. Privately, I went to see Myra Lan. My personal lawyer has already investigated and confirmed that Jet Jiang did transfer the money to Myra Lan. I demanded that she return the 3 million Jet Jiang transferred to her as soon as possible, or else we would have to take legal action. Myra Lan, no longer the meek person she appeared to be that day, responded with an arrogant attitude and sarcastic remarks, mocking me for having no evidence, calling me stupid with too much money. So, I hired a private investigator to look into her. Later, my mother-in-law gradually shifted her battleground from our residential area to my beauty salon. The clients I worked so hard to maintain would be harassed by her the moment they stepped out. She always clutches an urn, raving madly about my crime of causing her son's death. This led to my recently regained client completely severing ties with me and demanding a refund. Even the employees were terrified and fled with their belongings. When I could bear it no longer, I received several photos from a private detective. When I threw the photos of Myra Lan secretly meeting and flirting with other men to my mother-in-law, she still refused to believe it. Later, I showed her Jet Jiang's report on oligospermia. It was a fully stamped and documented medical report. I told her with certainty that the child in Myra Lan's belly was not Jet Jiang's. The mother-in-law instantly transformed into a rampaging beast, furious. She stormed toward Myra Lan's psychological counseling room. The next day, a violent brawl resulting in injuries occurred in our district. By the time I was notified by the police and arrived at the hospital, the mother-in-law was undergoing emergency treatment in the ICU. Myra Lan was also rushed into the operating room due to a miscarriage. The same 2 police officers who had dealt with me before were there to receive me again, this time. Their expressions held a hint of sympathy when they looked at me. It turned out that my mother-in-law had chased after Myra Lan to the examination room that day to confront her about the child. She knew her mother-in-law was domineering and difficult, so she coaxed her and managed to appease her. The next day, her mother-in-law made soup and brought it to her, only to find her being intimate with a man, and that man was the very one from the photo I had shown her. Furious, the mother-in-law poured the entire pot of hot soup over both of them. Myra Lan, seeing that the truth was exposed, no longer wanted to hide. She directly revealed that the other man was actually her boyfriend, and Jet Jiang was merely a tool for her to make money. The child she was carrying was not Jet Jiang's, but her boyfriend's. Enraged, her mother-in-law kicked her in the stomach. Blood was drawn immediately. Unable to contain her anger, the mother-in-law also exposed the truth. Jet Jiang had faked his death to deceive me into committing suicide for love, all in an attempt to kill me so he could live happily ever after with her. As she hit him, she lamented how unworthy her son was. To think he would abandon such a good and capable wife, only to ruin his life for a shameless serial homewrecker, risking one's life. Myra Lan's boyfriend directly lifted the mother-in-law and threw her to the ground. He beat her for over 10 minutes. The mother-in-law suffered multiple fractures and was unconscious when rescued. In the end, my mother-in-law couldn't be saved. Covered with a white sheet, she was wheeled out of the ICU. Just like Jet Jiang, I sued Myra Lan and her boyfriend in court. 3 months later, Myra Lan not only had to repay me the 3 million in debt, but she was also sentenced to 5 years in prison for her involvement in Jet Jiang's plot to murder me. Her boyfriend was sentenced to life imprisonment for the crime of intentional homicide. With this, the retaliation against the injustices suffered in her past life came to a complete end. From now on, my life truly begins. In this lifetime, I will live freely and brilliantly.